Okay, so I think this is session 3 for the mini pod that I started because of the inspiration of my friend who checked me on the notion that I should be on screen running my mouth. Um, Something that I've always known, but uh, I'm going to continue to do so now because sometimes that's all you need is just a little push from the right person. So this is the Rockmill Tag mini pod. And Rockmill is ROK for Republic of Korea, MIL for Milton, because my whole company, my whole enterprise, my whole community is rooted in my experience as a black kid born in South Korea to a mother who was in the sex trade, and so much of it that I saw. So throughout these conversations, I'll probably reference a story or two from that life, um, as well as reference a story or two from beyond that life, which was at the age of 8, I got adopted by a black military family originally from Texas, who was in South Korea because of the military. And now I'm a Washington. And then at the age of almost 10, I moved to the States and I have a whole new life. So yeah, I'll be talking a little bit about all of that, and but more than just kind of that background, um, I'll also be talking about kind of how that background has shaped and formed my enterprise and the community that I have built. That is really rooted in openness, acceptance, and just being good. Um, with a dash or two of creativity and artistry. Um, but it's just about some old school, not only be good to others, but also being good to yourself. And what movement can do to help those goals. Um, and that system of movements that is at the centerpiece of the Rockmill community um, is something that I call Rockmill Indigenous Fitness. Nobody's talking about indigenous fitness now because it's really not a thing outside of our community and the community here in Harlem. By the way, I'm on 124th Street and Lenox Avenue, um, which can be considered the epicenter of Harlem and therefore the epicenter of blackness. So I don't think that's coincidence. Um, so I was thinking about kind of, what do I say on the, what do I talk about on the third episode here? Um, but I think that answer just kind of came to me through organic living because I just came back from Indianapolis, and I went to a funeral in Indianapolis, and I went to a funeral of one of my closest friends, um, Connie. Her son, who's my godson, he was 37 years old when he passed. And he passed away from various complications from diabetes. And obviously, that hit me hard. It hit me really hard. And, it made me think about, kind of, what do you do? Do you have a protocol or kind of process for when life hits you hard, so hard that sometimes you can't even get out of bed? Um, do you have a means that are effective uh, to keep you going? Um, and not only keep you going in terms of persevering, kind of persevering through your life and achieving some of the achievements that you want to attain. But sometimes just persevering just to stay centered and calm and capable of taking on more life, because that's the math. More life will come at you regardless of your setbacks, because this world never stops spinning. It continues. And some of the darker forces of life continue and persist and don't give a damn about how bad your day was. So I think it's very important to have those plans. I started Rockmill Fitness 7 plus years ago. And even before starting Rockmill Fitness, I struggled with depression. And and I remember in the early stages of it, that might have been almost 20 years ago now, and this is 2026. I just dealt with it, and I'd be in a funk for a good, like 7 to 10 days or 7 to 14 days. And I would just deal with it, I'm built like that to just kind of persevere anyway. But then, I remember there was a point in my life in which I started to really take the reins and take control of my life, right? Because I really discovered that I could, even in South Korea. I think one of the reasons why I got out of South Korea in the manner that I did was because I knew that because I was in an environment which people didn't like me, people didn't value me. It was kind of a hostile situation. I knew to get out. And the get out part for me was, I'm going to get to America because I'm going to find my father. And when I find my father, I'm going to hook him back up with my mother. And I'm going to be flying in the back seat of one of the flying cars that they got in America around cities that floated in the clouds that had buildings made out of gold and mountains made out of ice cream. Because that's exactly what we thought America was. I had this plan to get out of there. And I started to realize that, and I got out of there, number one, but I started to realize that, things that I do can affect my life in ways that I want to affect my life. Sometimes it's not just, you don't have necessarily the control to actually make a pivot. You're going in one direction and you pivot to another direction and boom, life changes. Sometimes it's like driving an aircraft carrier. You start making that turn and, miles down the road, you end up making that turn, But I really started to get the sense of having a sense of control in my life. And that was really, really important to me. So when it came to this depression, I said, let me do something about it. And to do something about it, I'm not one to read books. I didn't start school until I got adopted. And I didn't start school until I was 9 years old, 9.5 years old. And it was a school just to learn English first. And then I got, put into the second or the third grade, whatever grade it was that I got started. And everything was just flying over my head. I didn't understand a thing. And plus, I wanted to be outside because that's what I was used to, rather than being, cramped up in a seat, learning, words in ways that didn't make almost any sense to me. I started to get a sense of control and made a decision to do something about my depression. And I wanted to test some things out because, And part of the testing out was I really wanted to understand the state that I was in while I was in depression. So I'm not giving any medical advice. I'm not a doctor. I'm not telling you to do anything. I'm just telling you what I did, because I found out that for me, the way that I saw depression, and the despair that came with that depression, was also associated with a lack of control that I had in my life. That's how I saw that math. And so what I wanted to do was increase control to alter depression, right? So, and kind of, with some testing and experimentation, one of the things that I discovered was, well, if I was feeling down, one of the things that I discovered was when I was in that state, I couldn't sleep very well, and my mind would race as I lay down for sleep, and I would spend hours just thinking about all sorts of things that wasn't necessarily worthwhile. And so with that, I said that I was gonna stop the racing of the mind. I wasn't a big pill popper, never really have been, and sometimes it was beyond what a little puff could do. The thing that I tried was, I love exercise. I love movement. I love strenuous exercise. I love competition. So when I felt the depression coming on, it was make sure I go to and hit the gym hard. And if it was in the spring or the fall or the summer, do so outside. Get that sun. But work out so hard that I had no choice but to lay down and knock out. And you take a nice little bath with some Epsom salts, and you get that magnesium and in the blood, and you really get down to a nice little level of comfort. And you could be so tired that the mind just stops racing. So one of the keys that I found to depression for me was be highly protective of my rest and restoration. Because I was always built in a way that I knew there was always going to be tomorrow. And tomorrow was another day. It was another fight. And the way that you woke up had a lot to do with where you start that fight. So I was highly protective of my rest. So that was the first thing. Then number two, I knew that I had some friends with some personalities and some chemistry that often entailed me giving up a lot of energy to them, when we were interacting. They come with issues and or they might just have a net negative kind of attitude about a thing. And, then we get into the negative thing. That was not good for me during those times. So socially, there were some people that I absolutely had to cut out of my life, right, during that patch of time. But then who I would seek out would be those friends that every time we got on the phone or we got together, I was the one laughing. So, one of my boys, he's a fantastic photographer. This cat named Will Volts. He used to live here in the city, but now he's down south now. He is somebody who anytime we talk, I'm crying. He would just have me absolutely dying. Sense of humor. He was really smart, witty. He could be on some negative stuff, but that was rare, and especially if he knew I was in a certain kind of state, he would always kind of keep it upbeat. So I was highly selective of who I had around me socially and the energies. And I would make sure that at the end of the day, whatever energies that I had around me was energies that fed me and didn't take away from me. So there was the protection of my rest through vigorous workout. There was the protection of my energies socially. And then the other part was, I'm an artist. If you look up Milton Washington photography or photographer, you'll see a bunch of my work. I have a book out from Random House called Stepping Out, which is about 50 black folks over the age of 50 with style that I went around the U.S. shooting on an iPhone. And the writer for that book is a New York Times bestselling novelist. Her name is Connie Briscoe. It's a real deal. It's a book from Random House. So, and it's my first book. Didn't even expect it to be my first book, but boom, there it was. And people talk about my photography and kind of how unique it is and all that. So I'm an artist. So the other thing that I would do during these times was, I would kind of stop what I'm doing, check the map, and go to a part of, and plot out a part of town that photographically I was interested in. Like the Upper East Side has really, really rich architecture, just like Soho has rich architecture. And so I would explore a part of town that I was curious about photographically. I take my little puffs and head to that part of town and explore, shoot. And on the train ride home, edit on the phone, and then post it up online and people say ooh and ah. That's a process. That entire process made me feel good. So at the end of the day, it was not only protecting my sleep, it was protecting my energy, and then it was creation, the act of creation. The act of creation for me was always powerful because it's hard for me to feel too much of a kind of way when I'm creating. And sure enough, those 14-day depression sessions turned into 2-day depression sessions. And then when I started Rockmill Fitness, turned into 0. I have not had a day of depression since I started Rockmill Fitness. And Rockmill Fitness in many ways, it incorporates exactly what I just said. You will get the kind of vigorous workout that you're going to sleep your ass off. You're going to rest well. And it's going to be whole body. It's not like you're going to wake up in the next day, your chest and your biceps are killing you. Your whole body feels some kind of way, but it's not debilitating. It's not debilitating. It is the kind of muscle activation and the kind of soreness that you can have an energetic day, but sleep really, really well. And then socially, this whole crowd of folks is just good people. And I'm telling you, you need to be around good energy when you're feeling some kind of way. You don't need to be giving out energy. You need to be receiving energy. Whatever your math was before that, that's the math it has to be when you're in that state. And then the creative part, there are many people in this community who don't consider themselves artists, but the exploration, the creativity of movement that you get to experience in Rockmill Fitness, you'll feel like any other real artist. So this is a combination and some math that I just want to give you. If you're dealing with any kind of down times and you're in a funk and you can't seem to snap it, and you're not really prone to the pills and all that kind of stuff, which I don't necessarily recommend at all. Stay natural. Stay natural. This math of exertion, physical exertion, to protect the sleep, social capital protection, make sure you're around the right social energy, and the act of creation. That'll make you feel better. And the final thing I said is, when you're feeling some kind of way, get some sunshine on your face. Get some sunshine on your face. And if it's the summer and the spring and all that, take off your shirt, take off whatever you can out in public and get some sunshine on your body. All right? All right. So I hope that math helps somebody. All right. Let's look out for the next session. And Deanne, thanks again. Peace.